Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing okay tonight. Usually this video would have been live, but this video can't be live because my Wi-Fi has run out and I'm going to have to get some more gigs in the morning, so I can't do live videos. The signal here at the hotel is not strong enough. I wish to talk about the Tim Canova race in Florida. Now, if you remember, right now, Andrew Gillum is in this kind of recount with DeSantis, and Bill Nelson is in a recount with Rick Scott. Now, Rick Scott and DeSantis thought they won that race, so much so that Gillum conceded before every vote was counted. Now, interesting enough, there was a box of votes that was found coming from Broward County. Now, if you remember, Broward County is with Brenda Snipes, which was the one that destroyed the ballots in 2016 when Tim Canova ran. So this was, a little dicey. Now, that's it. I want to talk about that race. And I want to talk about it because right now, Tim Canova has both boroughs aimed at the Democratic Party, particularly Broward County, and is firing on all cylinders. Nico House has been out there firing on all cylinders, making the point that this is corrupt, this doesn't smell right, this was fudgy back then and it's fudgy now, and their message is gaining resonance on the right. Now, it's gaining resonance on the right and to some part on the left, but mainly on the right because that's not fully true. It's gaining resonance on the left, on the right, in regards to like a Fox News type thing, for obvious reasons. So, first point, and because I want to give my opinion on it, at the very least, the way I process what's taking place right now. Nico got into a big back and forth with Geoff making the point that he's angry at Tim Canova, and that Tim Canova is being vindictive for taking aim at this. Meaning Tim Canova lost, and Tim Canova is alleging corruption only because he lost. With this idea that the corruption charge may inhibit or give the right wing some level of cover for trying to stop the vote count. Nico essentially is like you're a turncoat, and you were on this thing before in 2016 where you agreed, and now all of a sudden you're pretending as if Broward County is on the up and up. Let me process how it processes. I'm going to try to make it quick. 3 minutes has passed. I'm trying to do this in 10 minutes. 1, people conform to the natural environment. Now, what I mean by that is, in the same way as a coal miner, let's say, in West Virginia. Well, that coal miner may care about the environment and everything else, but that coal miner has a wife and kid to feed. And because that coal miner has a wife and kid to feed, all of this talk about climate change, all of this talk about new energy policy and everything else, if that means he is going to lose his job and he is not going to be able to support his wife and kid, he is not going to be all that inclined to be on board with this thing of climate change, even if the world is at stake. Yes, it is rational, as rational could be, to say, look, dude, in 20 years, we're going to take a hit. And part of it is because of jobs like yours. By the same token, it is rational for him in his particular environment to say, I have a wife and kid to feed. It sucks for you. I have a wife and kid to feed. I say that only to make the point, his perspective is constrained by the environment. And using this thing of right and wrong as a lens to look at it is less accurate than cause and effect. If his wife and kid need to be fed, the effect will be he will be against your policy. Now, he's not necessarily wrong from in as much as his environment dictates his behavior. Same thing with the larger public. Environment is not an absolute. It will be specific to the individual and based on where they are. That's the first point. I want you to use that, though, when you're appraising what's taking place in Florida. It is vitally important that you understand that point. All right, so 2. As a flat fact, Tim Canova ran against Deborah Wasserman-Schultz. As a flat fact, in 2016, Tim Canova, after the official tally says that he lost, Tim Canova wanted to go back and interrogate the vote. That is his right. That is his God-given right, and just so happens to also be his constitutional right to do so. Not to mention, there's a larger philosophical point here that if you live in a democratic government or representative government, how do you know that you've won if you don't have the ability to go back and interrogate the vote or the voting process? Meaning it's the process that matters. It's the process is the thing that keeps it to some degree fair. Tim Canova has no reason to trust anybody that's in his process from the standpoint of Deborah Wasserman-Schultz or Brenda Snipes. What he has to trust in this is that the people tally these votes appropriately, and he could go back and he could evaluate the vote and see the ballots himself in order to inspect. It is a flat fact that that process was subverted, that those ballots were destroyed. Whether an argument can be made that there was cheating or not is a little different, but at the very least we know that those ballots were destroyed, and that broke the law. So you can see right off the bat he's going to be a little bit cynical of this process because it looks dodgy. I'm supposed to be able to interrogate the vote, and I can't interrogate the vote because you've destroyed the ballots. It is rational to question the process at that point. He's not wrong. It is perfectly rational. It makes all the sense in the world for an individual to wonder, okay, is this process fair? She destroyed the ballots. Now, as another flat fact, nobody cared. Nobody cared, with the exception of Tim Canova. He went from pillar to post trying to get people to do something about this. Even with the judge's ruling, he couldn't get anybody to do anything about this. And Rick Scott, gives a token, I'll put a monitor on it. But Rick Scott didn't care. That's some kind of democratic process stuff. I don't care. What do I care? That deals with Democrats. That has nothing to do with me. And that there might have been something dodgy there. Let's keep going. Sanders was cheated. The process that Bernie Sanders ran in, they cheated him, and the entire time in the process, with a straight face and with a grin, they said, there's nothing to see here, folks. This process is impartial, and if you say anything other than this process is impartial, you're just being sore losers. And then you get to the point of realizing they were lying. Even if you want to go to the degree of Donna Brazile saying that Hillary Clinton essentially had control over the political edifice while simultaneously running in the race, that's still cheating. Even if you don't go to the closing of the ballots or the increasing the length of the lines intentionally, essentially doing things that Republicans were doing. Even if you want to go to that point, which is true, by the way, that part is absolutely true. Even going to the degree of Donna Brazile, that was cheating. Republicans shaving people off the voter rolls. Republicans increasing the length of the lines. And Republicans finding ways to make it difficult for people to vote, even attacking the voting process itself, meaning trying to stop the number of votes being counted in some of these races. Increasing the length of the lines, closing polling locations, putting in laws for voter IDs, essentially putting in laws and policies that make it difficult for certain constituencies to vote because they know statistically that a certain number of people will be more inclined to vote for them, whereas the people who would have a much harder time make that vote is for the Democratic Party. Constitution be damned. This is politics. The goal in this is the win. And for the most part, this is the way that both parties have acted. The Democratic Party did this in a primary when it suited their interests. The Republican Party has turned this into a fine science for the last 20, 30 years, with the Democratic Party essentially allowing them, flaking invertebrates. In this context, what is a man to do and what is a man to think? So it is natural as natural can be, based on the environment that Tim Canova and some of the people that were supporting Tim Canova, to look at this and say, this is dodgy. Broward County all of a sudden has all of these votes coming in. And not just all of these votes coming in that they found in the box. How did I get such little total in comparison to Deborah Wasserman-Schultz? She's supposed to be the most popular person on the planet now. This doesn't look right. This smells. Now, here's the thing. What's true here is there's no way to know. Saying that this is dodgy, this is fake, this is corrupt, and all, there is literally no way to know. There was no polling in the beginning of the race, with the exception of a Republican poll. The Republican never actually showed that poll so it could be interrogated. So at this point, it was somewhat a certain degree of conjecture that Tim Canova was anywhere in the running. And fact of the matter is, as dodgy as it looks, it's an unknown. I'm sorry, that's true. People are going to hate me saying that, but that's true. That said, it's not wrong for Tim Canova, based on the environment to which Tim Canova exists in the context to which he's in, to look at this process and say, there's something wrong with this. This smells. Now, second point. Broward County's obscenely, ridiculously long length of time in giving those ballots over, or the time frame where they found ballots, stinks. I say that as somebody that want Gillum to win. I say that as someone that want Nelson to win. That stinks. Either that woman, Snipes, who has a PhD, is remarkably, incomprehensibly incompetent, or it stinks. Now, I have trouble saying that because, like I said, I have a dog in the hunt. I want Gillum to win and I want Nelson to win. But Democrats are looking at this process where it's taken days for this stuff to come in, where they're finding a box of votes out in the boonies, and they said, nothing to see here, folks. And the fact of the matter is, if the roles were reversed, they will be flipping out right now. They will be saying that Rick Scott is cheating in his role as governor. They will be saying that Rick Scott has been finding votes. They will be saying all sorts of stuff. What they wouldn't be saying is, nothing to see here, folks. So when Canova or some of his allies look at this and say this stinks, and Republicans say this stinks because you're finding votes in the boonies, they're not wrong for pointing that out. What Democrats are looking at, just saying nothing to see here. I am more astounded by the nothing to see here, folks, than anything else. The thing is, the reality is, they want Gillum to win. Of course they want Gillum to win. Gillum is a Democrat. They are Democrats. They want Gillum to win. So when they're going to write a piece, they're going to write a piece that says, this looks odd, but there's nothing really to see here. They're just counting votes. That's the truth. I'm sorry. That's the way I see it anyway. Now, that's it. Republicans are all of a sudden enamored with Tim Canova's story. Oh, they want to hear Tim Canova talk like nobody's business, because Tim Canova is essentially, supposedly, on the left, attacking the Democratic Party, which allows them to chime in and says, yes, this guy that's attacking the Democratic Party that ran in this particular race, he says it's cheating, and I think it's cheating. So Marco Rubio tweets out Tim Canova's thing with the trucks at Broward County, said, is this taking away votes? And Marco Rubio jumps in on this conspiracy theory, and he runs with it. The Republican Party runs with it. Donald Trump runs with it. Rick Scott runs with it. No evidence anywhere. Evidence be damned. The Republican Party, the truth of the matter is, they want that vote stopped. They want an investigation, because an investigation allows them to find anything that they can use to either stop that vote, inhibit that vote, and get Rick Scott and DeSantis in office. That's also true. Everything that I've just said here is true. Everybody has a particular dog in the hunt. Everybody has something either in the process they want or they don't want. And all of them, to some degree, are being motivated and incentivized by those things. Canova is more honest in this just because his context was shaped by the environmental factors that was around Canova. He's not wrong. Of course he's going to look at this process and say there's something dodgy with this. He's lived through the 2016 elections. He's been perfectly aware of the George B. Bush and all of the stuff that's taken place across the country with regards to politicians. He is aware that these guys will do things in order to get over the hump, Constitution be damned. So yes, he looks at this process and says, this looks dodgy. I don't believe it. My rationale is shaped by the factors that came before me. I am a creature of my environment just like everybody else. Republicans are just craven. They just want to win. Full stop. Democrats just want to win. So stuff that looks anomalous, they're willing to overlook. There's been no investigation into this. And if it's a situation where investigation needs to take place, fair enough. It should not be a Republican that does that investigation. It should be an impartial investigation. And damned if I know how you're going to get that accomplished in Florida with Rick Scott as governor. That said, every vote should be counted. Full stop. That's not from a Democratic position. That's not from an independent position. That's not from any position. If I would hope that a Republican would say the same thing. People who are in the state of Florida who are trying to elect a governor or trying to elect some other member of their office, one man, one woman, one vote. That's my position. That's always been my position. To some degree, I am a libertarian on this front. I want people to be able to vote, and I want that vote to be in a fair contest. And the catch becomes, how do you have a fair contest when the political process has been utterly debased, where this idea of a constitutional democracy mattered less? In all of these cases, when Hillary Clinton was trying to get elected, Constitution mattered less. The election, winning, mattered more. The country, what the country wanted, mattered less. All of these things were subordinate to the political whims and political expedience. And the same thing has happened in Georgia. The same thing has happened in Florida. I just watched a post where all of these people were prevented from, their absentee ballots were prevented, the majority of which, again, Democrats, magically. One man, one woman, one vote. And at some point, we need to talk about the political system that would allow it to be gamed by political actors who are running in the political system. I have no idea what happened in Florida. Zero. And this is not to take a position on any of the players here, because my position here doesn't necessarily take on a right or wrong. It takes on just an action and consequence. Yes, this is the world that Tim Canova exists in, so this is the world to which this is the way he's going to behave. Nico worked with Tim Canova on his campaign. He worked closely with him on his campaign. I saw him out there sweating buckets trying to get up votes. And so looking at this number, what Tim Canova loses by, is demoralizing. I wanted Tim Canova to win that race. I wanted Deborah Wasserman-Schultz to fail. I was going to bathe in her campaign speech. I would have came on here and drenched myself in her failure. That didn't happen. That's a brutal loss. It hurts. Is there shenanigans? I have no idea. Republicans have no idea. They don't care. Democrats, damn sure, don't want to investigate whether or not there's been shenanigans. And here again, we arrive at Florida. That's the way I process it. That's the way I see it. Some people are going to hate me saying it this way, but I see this stuff as action and consequence. And I look at this stuff as, what are the incentives of the people involved in the process? What are they trying to accomplish? And what's more true, or what's the reality of it? If roles were reversed, Democrats would say it is bizarre that she's finding a box of votes. By the same token, it is possible that they found a box of votes and that they were just somewhat incompetent. and how they were going through the electoral process. I have no idea. I want every vote counted, meaning one man, one woman, one vote, and there should be a sanctity of the vote. Florida, at this point, is fucked. Your guess is as good as mine how this is going to turn out. That said, I would prefer Gillum to win, and I would prefer Nelson to win. But this is the way I process what is taking place. Thanks all. Oh, by the way, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like it, subscribe to it. If you're not already subscribed, hit the notification bell because I am live pretty much all the time. I do the news as somewhat of a life thing. And you can always support the content either through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.